Katie, let it out with Katie. Let it out with Katie Dalebout, enthusiast and curator of people and ideas you need to hear.
You guys, welcome back. This is going to be the shortest intro in the history of this podcast, maybe any podcast, because this episode is maybe the longest episode ever, and maybe the weirdest, and you're going to hear that very, very soon. But first of all, welcome. You are listening to Let It Out with me. I'm your host, Katie Dalebout. Thank you so much for listening. If you're new, what a weird episode to start your listening career of the Let It Out podcast. I recorded this episode very late at night. I mentioned at the end of this that it might be the first time I've started an episode on one day and it's ended on a different day. That's how late at night this episode was recorded. In a very cozy, warm Pilates studio, actually my favorite Pilates studio in the world, here in New York City, in the East Village. It's called 6th Street Pilates, and you are going to hear the owner and Pilates teacher, Anula, talk about everything from the history of Pilates to growing up in Israel and moving to New York at 19, and photography and how she transitioned from being a photographer to being a Pilates instructor and studio owner, and a really interesting, fascinating, cool person with great style and a lot of cool insights on life and feelings. We meandered all over the place in this conversation, but it's long, like I said, and honestly, I was kind of loopy, and there are parts that we're both really tired. But we said at the end, this is a conversation that wouldn't have happened if I would have caught her at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday with a cup of coffee. It was one of those conversations that happens at a sleepover when you're having pillow talk, and it wasn't like that at first, but after an hour and a half of recording, we really got comfortable and talked about things in a way that people don't usually talk about things on a podcast. We talked about depression and feeling sad and that being okay. We talked about the privilege of being able to talk about our feelings and many really important things, but the juice, the entire episode is good, but the really, really important parts that I haven't been able to stop thinking about all happen at the end. So get there and listen to them. Okay, like I said, it's long. I don't want to keep rambling. I started to say, if you're new, welcome. If you've been listening for a while, thank you so much. And I hope you continue to listen. There's an archive of 200 plus episodes. I don't have to say nearly 200 anymore. We've passed 200. So there are officially over 200 episodes on iTunes and more every single week. This podcast comes out every Wednesday. And thank you so much for listening. Stay until the end because I'm going to give you the emoji for the episode that will let me know that you listened all the way to the end, and we can all have a little club about that on the internet. But follow Anula. She's great. Her Instagram is in the show notes. And leave a review on iTunes if you like this podcast. Share it with a friend if you like this podcast. Blast it out of your speakers as you're walking around or driving. To share it with people on the street. That's probably not very nice. Just, tell people if you think they would enjoy it. Okay, let's talk about the sponsors and get to this week's episode. I love you. Thank you so much for listening. This week's episode is brought to you in part by Bob's Red Mill. I love Bob's Red Mill, and you probably do too. I use their products regularly. They are a wholesome brand that makes you feel good about what you're eating. They've been offering organic, gluten-free, stone-ground products for decades. They have gluten-free products that are processed in a 100% gluten-free facility to ensure no cross-contamination. So if you have celiac disease, like my best friend does, you can use their products and you can know that you're going to be safe and you're not going to get sick from them. I really do buy their stuff all the time, you guys, and I did long before they were a podcast sponsor. If you're baking a lot at this time of year, as one does, you probably need some flours and some flaxseed and some coconut flour and almond flour and your paleo flowers, your vegan flowers. I think golf flowers are vegan, I hope. Anyway, they have the products for you. And right now, you can get 25% off your order of Bob's Red Mill products, which you're probably going to buy anyway at the store. You might as well order them and use the code LETITOUT at checkout. That's LETITOUT for 25% off your order. Thank you so much, Bob's Red Mill. Thank you for supporting the podcast by supporting the sponsors. You guys, I've become obsessed with Juice Beauty. I really have. This is, yes, they are a sponsor, but I would probably be telling you this if they were not. I can't get enough of their products. The founder, Karen, came on the podcast a while ago. I love the woman. She's very, very cool, very smart, also Midwestern, but her products are just as cool as she is. They offer luxurious, high-performance skincare, but really, it's amazing. It's plant-pigmented makeup that I can't get enough of. It makes my skin actually feel really great. Their pigmented primer is my favorite thing. I use it every day. I'm actually running low, so I need to get another one. I can't get enough of them. Gwyneth Paltrow is their creative director of their makeup line. And let me tell you, she knows how to make a good lip crayon as well as act in a movie, okay? She's the real deal, that woman. And, well, I don't know if she's the real deal, but I really like the makeup from Juice Beauty. I'll tell you that much, okay? Here's the thing. You guys can get 15% off your order, no code needed, by going to juicebeauty.com/letitout. That's juicebeauty.com/letitout for 15% off your order. It might be easier, instead of remembering that, to just click on the link in the show notes, which will take you to their website where you can shop, get everything you need for skincare. This stuff would make great gifts at the holidays. I know I'm going to be gifting my favorite products to people. I really love their lip products. I love, like I said, their primer. I use their powder as foundation and all their skin. Oh, I'm washing my face with their green apple cleanser every day. I'm really enjoying that. I love natural skincare, you guys. It's an addiction that I have, and Juice Beauty feeds into that. So if you want to help me out with my addiction and you want to maybe get one yourself, I highly recommend going to juicebeauty.com/letitout for 15% off your order. Try it. Okay, enjoy this episode. Bye. I've never recorded a podcast this late at night before.
I've never recorded a podcast this late at night before.
Well, I like it. I like our fun sleepover party.
I just couldn't. I'm like, let's just do it.
Let's just get it done. I know.
Do it. Otherwise, we'll just play tag.
I know, forever. And I was so excited to have you on. And I was talking to my boyfriend on the way over here, and I was like, "This is the one I told you about," because I was so sad when we couldn't do it on Labor Day. I was confused. And I was so sad. I was like, what if it never happens? I think she's mad at me. What if I never get to I make up all these silly stories in my head. And I was like, no, it's fine. We'll do it when we do it. It's fine.
It's totally
so
fine.
Silly. I
thank you for wanting to hear what I have to say.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love the studio, and I just happened in here. And then I started following on Instagram, and I was like, oh, she's amazing and so cool. And I met you briefly one morning, I think, as I was trying to take a class that was booked.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've been excited to have you on ever since we tried the first time.
Yeah. What is the thing you're interested in talking about?
Well, everything. I have copious notes.
Okay.
So I've spent actually made these notes months ago when we started this. But I listened to you on other podcasts, and I read all your articles, and I spent time with you, which was lovely, on the internet. And so anyway, I have lots of things I want to talk about, but I've been really liking starting this podcast in the present.
Okay.
So I like to get into the future and the past and where you are, but I've been really liking starting in the now. So what have you been pondering or realizing or thinking about really recently, today or the last week or month even?
Right.
What's been on your mind? I know.
Are we recording?
We're recording.
Okay,
we just
got it. Good question. So I think the thing that like is the most present right now is the most recent article I wrote about body shaming on social media. I don't know if you got to
I don't know if I saw it yet.
read that. So it came out a couple weeks ago, and it's sort of in reply to, I think, people say on social media things that they would never say to your face,
Yeah.
which is like not a new notion,
Yeah.
right? But what's new about it is I think that know about it in terms of like the Pilates community or fitness community or women to women or, you know, all these things that I'm constantly thinking about is that why in this day and age where women are feeling very unequal to men, with like who we have as a president and like various, you know, traumatizing stories coming out. Why is it the case that women aren't advocating for other women more on social media? Why is it that women feel that it's okay to shame their colleagues online? Like, why is that actually okay? Like, why does that fall under the category of I'm just expressing my thoughts? Because, like, there's a fine line between, like, censoring people and reprimanding them for being rude, right? So I'm not so interested, I'm, like, not interested in the action of, like, saying you can't say this. I'm asking, why is it okay to say this?
Yeah.
You know? And start really changing what is acceptable way to communicate your thoughts, especially between women. Like, whatever men say about women's bodies becomes a lot more political and like a lot more multifaceted historically or whatever, male gaze and all of that. But I wonder to myself, like, when a woman is sitting in front of a clip of me teaching a class online and she says, I would never want to learn fitness from someone who is so unfit, right? Let's say that's the sentiment. Why is that an actually acceptable thing to say publicly? You know, it's sort of saying like,
To
why
me,
would
it's not acceptable.
Right, but it is acceptable in some circles of thought, right? Because to me, it sounds the same as like, well, why would I want to learn fitness from someone who doesn't reflect the body I'd like to have? Right? Or sort of like, why would I learn fitness from someone who's Jewish? Or why would I want to learn fitness from someone who's black? Or, you know what I mean? Like, you don't, like, there's someone's physicality, and saying that you don't want to learn from their physicality is not hate crime or like, you know, like, we're not going like that deep into it, but it's the same as being like, well, I wouldn't want to learn from her because she's gay. You know, and I'm like, that's actually not okay to say. It's fine to think whatever you want. But
it reminds me of that, like, after the election, that Aziz Ansari's Saturday Night Live monologue where he was saying all of these racist and all of these homophobic people were there, but they were hiding. And then now they're liberated. And you helped me just to reframe that, because I was thinking, well, that's not okay to say. But I just, like, that just clicked for me the way you explained it, of like, well, people are saying it, so clearly they feel comfortable enough saying it, whereas no one would say.
But they're saying it every day. Like, here's the thing, like, they're saying, and it's not like, woe is me, like, white girl teaching Pilates, like, first world problems, like I'm trying to look at, like, a much bigger picture, where it's like, this is, like, an issue that is bigger than, like, my actual personal feelings. Like, the amount of people that don't participate in various parts of society, like amount of people that don't go to a gym, or amount of people that wouldn't go to the park and exercise outside, or the amount of people that won't go to a Pilates studio or a yoga studio or any tax bracket you want to put a human being in, because of their size, perpetuates them not exercising.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, do you want, what is your end goal? Is your end goal to shame people into not coming into your studio? Or when people come into your studio and they're larger, do you shame them and treat them like they're not worthy of the exercises? Like, I'm trying to imagine, like, if this is how you speak to a fellow colleague online, what are you going to say to your student that comes in and who is my size and wants to learn Pilates from you? What's the exchange that you guys are going to have? Are you going to tell her that she's not actually like there's something inherently wrong with her?
Yeah.
And what if she doesn't lose the weight as you guys go on this journey together of fitness, and she stays the same weight, but she gets a lot stronger?
Right. Because body diversity exists.
Right, like different genetics and different like medications and different like hereditary issues. Like, you don't know what's going on with this person, and you definitely don't know what's going on with me. So I'm just like imagining, like, what does the session look like with someone who is so on one end of the spectrum of tolerance.
Yeah.
You know, like, you go in there and like you should lose weight before you come in. Like, I just wonder, like, how they're treated.
I feel like I talk about this podcast primarily, we talk about everything, but body image is something we always talk about, and inclusivity and wellness in general. And I think, and I'd love to hear from you, and I think we already are kind of talking about this, what do you think it will take to change this in the wellness or fitness industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only way to change this is to actually not tolerate it anymore. Like again, like, I'm not trying to sort of akin this to true injustices in the world, right? It's just like a tiny microcosm of injustice, right? But things snowball. So it's like, if I tolerate this, then I'll tolerate probably something else, and then I'll tolerate something bigger and something bigger and something bigger. So if I start small and like a snarky comment that I don't think is okay, and to call the person out and publicly and say, like, actually, I don't think this is acceptable speech, is the only way to change it, is to like not back off and let it slide, or always take the high road. Like, I'm not saying I'm like I want to start a fight. I'm just saying, I'm actually saying out loud, you actually can't speak to me that way. Yeah. So you're either going to have to live with the fact that I exist, or keep scrolling. But you can't stop and make a snide, rude remark. You actually can't. Yeah. And the more people say that the same response, right? The more people say, you actually can't stop on my page and say something rude. I think that's the slow way to make denormalizing rudeness. Yeah.
What about in the wellness or the fitness industry as a whole? Yeah. Because I know I've walked into studios, not this beautiful one that we're sitting in that I love, but other places, lots of places, and just felt like I wasn't included, or I wasn't good enough, or I didn't have the right outfit, or
the nice
whatever.
Thing about wellness studios, especially in big cities, is that there's so much to choose from, right? So the problem is anything between like the big cosmopolitan cities and like the space in between those cities. Yeah. Because in the bigger city, you will always be able to find, in my imagination, the right wellness space for you. If it's your favorite yoga studio, if it's your favorite meditation center, if it's your favorite Pilates studio, in my case, you know, and like I wouldn't even exclude like trying out the big chains, because like not every chain studio is the same as its counterpart. So like I always advise people, if they're moving to a new city, try all of the studios in the area that you can get to, and you will eventually find the one you like. The problem is in smaller towns, where there's maybe like one or two options and you can't find your option. And then there's not a whole lot of solutions other than going virtual and finding like a virtual wellness support.
Yeah, that's tough. That's where I just came from. I only moved to New York in June, and where I lived, I exhausted all the options in like a week. Whereas here, like I barely scratched the surface, and like.
And these are, you know, like LA and New York and, you know, Chicago, whatever, like are big centers for wellness, or like a lot of like practitioners are there, and you can probably find your jam. I would say to people everywhere in between, that if you can't find a place that you feel comfortable exercising or whatever it is that you're looking to experience, you there's so many resources online these days that are going to probably scratch that need.
There is something as great as online classes are, online things, there's something about...
There's not a sense of community.
Yeah. And the physicality of like having, especially in Pilates, I think, of like having someone there.
The being guided through the exercises and finding, you know, like, or like being familiar strangers with the people that you usually kind of take class with, and like the teacher starts knowing your name, like the sense of community the Pilates studio creates can't be mimicked anywhere else. But if that doesn't exist where you live, then don't fight it.
It's just like, it's like this podcast. Like I love doing this, recording in person at 9:30 p.m.
Sure.
Because for so long I did it over the internet on Skype, and it was great, and I've had some great interviews that way, but there's something about in-person connection. I try to take as many meetings as I can in person and do as much in person as I can, because I think so much of that is lost.
Definitely. I mean, I've done a few different Skype or conference call meetings and podcasts, and they feel great, but they're not the same, because what I say into like a receiver will be probably different than seeing the reaction of the person in real time to what you're saying.
There's no nodding, there's no smiling, there's no...
It's more of a business transaction.
Exactly. And it's I'll remember this. Like, I'll remember this in a year and be like, oh, remember that funny night where I, like, wore my pajamas and weird. Came out at 9:30 and did a podcast. And I wouldn't remember it if I, like, talked to you on the phone tonight. You know? Like, I wouldn't have...
Yeah, it won't be as visceral.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking about Pilates quite a bit, but let's zoom the lens backwards. So you grew up in Israel, and I heard that your mom is American and your dad is a famous writer. So can you talk about your childhood a little bit? Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have 2 younger brothers. Okay. I feel like when people ask me that, I feel sort of guilty, because it's sort of very similar to growing up in any suburb. So I grew up in a suburb, which was pretty homogenous.
I'm an only child, whenever people are like, what was that like? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know any different reality. So, there was war and various permutations of like danger, but it's true, when you don't know that there's an alternative, really, then it seems really kind of like your normal changes. It was.
What were you like as a kid?
What was I like as a kid?
What were you into?
Busy. I was always busy. So I feel like I was always either busying myself One of the things my mom told me very early on is that if you're bored, that means you're boring. And when she said that, it sort of instilled like the fear of like ever being boring to me. So I was never like, being bored is like the most insulting thing that somebody can say. You know, like when I was like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm just bored."
Yeah.
Yeah, like I find that to be like it's the biggest turn off.
I agree.
And like, or like if you're meeting someone and like, you know, like on a romantic level and like they're like, "Oh, I was so bored today." I'm like immediately uninterested in anything they have to say.
I can't even relate to that.
Yeah, like no, you lost me.
I don't remember the last time I was bored. Like we have cell phones.
So it was sort of like, it was sort of like always busy. Not like, not for the sake of being busy, but like I was like, oh, I'm going to do interesting things. So as a kid, I was interested in grown-up things like cinema and art, and you know, I went to like a high school of the arts, and you know, I read books, and I was very interested. I think being really, really interested in things was sort of it didn't really matter what. It was like, like either be really interested in it or don't like do it at all, you know? Kind of all or nothing kid.
Is that where you got into photography in high school?
Yeah. I started in visual arts, and my mother is a visual artist, so I decided that at some point I was going to switch over to a different medium, so it didn't feel so in the footsteps.
What kind of art does she?
She's a painter.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was thinking that maybe not doing that exact thing would feel better.
Yeah. So you're doing photography. You're a busy kid.
Yeah.
Did you always know you wanted to move to New York? Why?
Yeah.
Why New York?
I came here when I was maybe 12 with my mom. And we
so
were
she's
walking.
American?
Yeah.
Where is she from?
She's from Urbana.
Where's
Illinois.
that? Okay, Illinois.
Yeah.
Okay, she's Midwestern.
Yeah. And, you know, she came from a bohemian life, like bohemian parents. And she's the youngest of 4. And they had an interesting upbringing. And then I remember coming here, you know, we would come every year to look at galleries and museums with mom and, you know, see family and things. And I remember walking around the old MoMA before they renovated it, and I had like a moment where I was like, oh, I'm going to move to New York, and I'm going to be Andy Warhol, and I'm going to have a factory, and all these like different characters are going to come in and out, and I'm going to just...
You kind of do.
And I think that I kind of do.
You totally do.
You know? So in a way, I found a way to like do what I decided to do many years ago, but maybe not necessarily in the arts, but I found a way to create a space where people can come and be themselves and move and be expressive and have like a rotating group of really good humans being interesting together, which is really what he was doing. Maybe minus the drugs and the rock and roll, but
I love that.
So that was very like, that was a moment where it was very clear to me what I wanted to do, and there was no wavering off the path. And
I feel like I was around 12 when I came here for the first time and had like a similar thought of, I'm either going to move here or I'm always going to wonder what it would have been like to live in New York.
I think that's the human condition.
Yeah.
It's like if you've been to New York and then you either like lament never having tried, or you move and you have a very like extreme life. New York is extreme.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a whole lot of in between. Like it's like very, very hot or very, very cold, and
your best days are like euphoric and your worst days
highs
are like
highs,
terrible.
the lows are incredibly low. Yeah. The train doesn't work or it works really well. Like there's nothing like there's nothing in between. the rent is really high, but then you can like find like a really cheap dinner. Like there's just like everything, you know, happens in these extreme scenarios. But I knew that this was 17 years ago when I moved here, that this was, for at least now, or for the duration, is my time. And then I'm actually coming full circle on it, where I'm like, okay, 17 years and you know nothing else of the world. You moved from Israel at 18 and then you know nothing else.
Yeah.
So the current sort of like touring is giving me like a little bit of a sense of, oh, there are other forms of existence, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I've never been outside of, really, like, for very long periods of time.
Yeah.
Like outside of coming to the studio and teaching and then going back home. Like,
yeah,
I'm pretty like cocooned.
You mean in New York?
Yeah, I never was a traveler, like, like, couldn't wait to, like, you know, like, I don't know, if you have, like, your interests, my interests were never travel as, like, a general, like, walks on the beach and traveling and, you know, I'd rather be here.
And now you're feeling like...
Now I'm feeling a little bit more, like, interested in and experiencing what other places are like.
So is that the impetus for this tour? Talk a little bit about this tour.
I mean, the tour, everything is sort of so ad hoc. Like, the tour started with, like, sort of suggesting to a couple of my studio owner friends that I'm kind of, like, I have this thing that I'd like to teach, and I'd like to come to your studio and teach it. No one, like, in the beginning, no one really, like, invited me. Like, I sort of called my pals, and I was like, so I want to come in and teach this, like, I don't know, my thoughts about movement for 3 hours in your space. Can we do that? And they're like, sure.
How did you cultivate this network of studio owners?
I think that when you go to, like, enough conferences and maybe you have a little bit of a reputation, studio owners come to you.
Cool. So,
like, a lot of these people that I initially contacted were people that came to New York and were interested in taking from me, and then we sparked a friendship, or at least like a work friendship.
Yeah.
And I felt comfortable enough to invite myself to their space.
Cool.
And then they just kind of went from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you start with inviting yourself, and it looks like you got invited, and then other people think like you got invited, so they feel like they want to also extend the offer. But yeah, I'm a cheap date. Like, I made it, like, inviting me to your studio is like not a big investment. Yeah. I don't have a long rider of like Beyonce level. Yeah, like, you know. And I'm trying to make the workshops very affordable to teachers. So, like, if you are coming from far away to take the workshop, that's a huge expense. So the workshop itself is not very expensive. Cool. So it's more like as democratic as it can be.
Yeah. So what is this workshop? Is this your potato method?
Yeah, I mean, the potato method really refers to how I feel about my own body when I do Pilates. Like, sometimes when I do Pilates, I feel like that's what a potato would look like if it was doing Pilates. Like you just feel blobby and, like, not ballerina like, and not as graceful as you could be. And I kind of trying to make that okay for other people. So I think it gets misunderstood because I'm not inventing an entirely new method of movement. It's Pilates. It's just how I feel, or sometimes how other people feel when they're doing Pilates in public in front of other people, and you feel kind of like a blob doing it versus like a graceful pixie person.
Yeah, I always feel that way 100% of the time.
Yeah, so the potato method is like, okay, be blobby and, like, embrace the potato-ness of how you feel that day versus pretending that it's not happening. Like I'm acknowledging that often we feel like potatoes exercising.
What has the reaction been from the people that have taken the workshops all over the world? Has anything surprised you?
No, I mean, a lot of things have surprised me on a lot of levels, but the reaction is that I think that if you come to my workshop, you kind of know a little bit about me, so you are not generally shocked by the content. And if you are, then you maybe didn't do enough homework. But the workshop itself is kind of what I just said, where it's like move like a person through this series of exercises that are the method of Pilates or whatever, there's just a finite amount of exercises in the method. Do them. I don't know where it was written that they have to be beautiful. Or visually or pleasing or look a certain way. Like why is your interpretation of the movement not okay for some reason to you? Who told you that your movement isn't as good as it can be? And sometimes it is a person who told you somewhere in your journey of movement that you're not good enough. Because it doesn't look like the picture perfect ideal. And I'm saying, well, okay, but you're 5'2" and this person is 6 feet tall, and there's you can't compare and contrast these two things. You're a man and this is a woman, and you're 30 and you're 60. What?
I remember being younger and thinking, like what we were talking about earlier with, exclusivity and all of these places. And I remember thinking oh, Pilates is really cool, but I can't go there until, or my body's not good enough.
Super normal. Yeah. And I'm trying to deconstruct that a little bit.
Which is so
and say, amazing. You don't need to look a certain way. You don't have to have a certain kind of outfit. You don't need to wait until you're XYZ enough to join the practice. Because what I'm trying to remind instructors, which is mostly the demographic that comes to these workshops, and students, is that why isn't your Pilates practice kind of like your yoga practice, or your horseback riding practice, or your martial arts practice? Why is this not the same? Why is it okay to be practicing your handstands in a yoga class, but not okay to be practicing whatever it is that we're doing in the Pilates studio on the same level? One day is aces and one day is not. One day you nail it and one day you don't, or or there's something you literally can't do and it's going to take you 5 years to get it. Oh, I don't get it. When you come to Pilates, I don't get, what are we doing? And I'm you're practicing movement.
I don't know a ton about the history of Pilates. Why? I know it was originally a therapy, right? More like physical therapy.
Yeah, it was rehabilitative. It had rehabilitative roots.
So when did the shift to aesthetics and emphasis on...
My personal opinion is that it's based on fact, but I'll say that it's more of an opinion. Is that Mr. Pilates, who was a man who came up with the method.
And this was in the 60s?
40s.
40s,
yeah.
Okay.
And into the 50s until he died. And he had a following, a pretty devout following of dancers and ex-dancers who took to the method and became his apprentices, or he never really did a teacher training per se. You never got certified by Mr. Pilates to then teach Pilates. You studied with him, and then you at some point decided to open your own studio. And there are 5 what we call like the elders, which makes it sound like a cult.
Yeah. So they were trained.
So they were trained by Mr. Pilates, and
who are still around.
Who was still kind of around. So he, like, you either got his blessing or you didn't to open your own studio across the way in Manhattan.
He was in New York? Okay.
And, you know, the different elders did different things, but they were all dancers or had dance background. And
all
that
women?
Painted, and a man. Also
Okay.
a dancer.
Okay.
And that painted everything a shade of dance.
Okay.
And it's just kind of how the cookie crumbled on that. Because, like, it just, you know, because his bread and butter of the people that actually came to take sessions from him and pay him money to work out were regular people and ladies who lunch. Because one of his first studios was I think at the old Bergdorf Goodman building, like
way uptown.
way uptown. And you would go shopping, and then you'd go have lunch, and then you'd go to Mr. Pilates, and it would be something that you could, like, hypothetically, you could exercise and not, like, profusely sweat and still kind of go about your day without having to shower.
Yeah, which I enjoy.
And you can wear your Chanel suit, you know. So it was, you know, ladies who lunch, and then injured dancers would come to him.
And so the ladies who lunch aren't going to open their own studio.
No, the ladies who lunch weren't interested in opening their own studio. So but the apprentices, or I don't know what the technical term for them was at the time, the students that were there to learn the method and potentially also teach, happened to be dancers.
Got it.
And they would probably thinking that this is a great rehabilitation tool for injured dancers, and that's how it got the reputation that it did. Like all the Alvin Ailey students would come and study with Mr. Pilates to rehab an injury, and then it just kind of happened to continue. That lineage happened to continue, but like it could have been like a different kind of luck of the draw, where like martial artists would come to him, or some other modality of movement would come, maybe a bunch of swimmers, like I don't know, you know, it could have been,
it would have been
something,
great,
it would have been something else, it would have looked differently today, but it happened to be that the dancers took the lead, and I think they sort of infused the original Mr. Pilates choreography with a more dancerly approach and flair.
Got it.
So things got lost in translation, like a game of telephone.
Yeah.
Like he taught it this way, but my body does it this way. You know what I mean? Right. So like if you can make it beautiful, I think that was the impetus. It's like if you can make it beautiful, why not make it beautiful? But the exercises are very utilitarian. And very democratic. So when I teach Pilates, I cut out the extraness sometimes, and keep it a little more straightforward, so it is appealing to people who maybe lack a certain level of like inherent grace, you know, so that you can still feel really successful in doing the exercise, but maybe you can just do it the same way you would do traditional fitness.
I love that, because I'm not a dancer, and I'm like if it's a spectrum, I'm on the opposite side.
Most
of
people
a dancer.
aren't.
Yeah, and there is something about, and I'm not an athlete either, and I'm not athletic, and I think there's something to the fact of being like at least I know I'm doing it right, and that's why I love a small class or where I'm being watched, and it's like, well, I'm not hurting myself, and this is challenging, but not terrible. Like
I want it to be somewhere like my interpretation of the exercises where I am now in my thoughts, which will probably change over time, is to say that there's no wrong gesture. with your body. You're not doing wrong, like you can't do it wrong. You could do it more to your advantage or less to your advantage.
Love that.
You know?
Yeah.
So like you can squat this way and you can squat that way. Does that one hurt your knee? Do the other one.
Yeah.
Right? But you're still doing a squat.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And Pilates is just like, if we demystify it a little bit, it's a set of very linear, straightforward exercises.
Yeah.
Like I know that it sounds like shrouded sometimes, like in people that have never experienced it, in the mystery of like, what is it even? But it's squats and lunges and planks and push-ups.
Yeah.
With springs or without springs.
Right.
With spring tension or without spring tension, with a reformer or without. Like, at the end of the day, you're doing like pretty functional movement. If we kind of strip away the aesthetics, it's just a squat and it's just a lunge and it's just a plank.
Yeah.
It's just stylized.
Right. Has different names.
Yeah, it has different names. It's stylized, but like a plank is a plank is a plank.
Right.
Bending and straightening your elbows is the same in every fitness modality, right? You're either pushing something away or you're pulling something.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like there's no right or wrong. There's just what is and isn't serving you.
Yeah.
Right? So injury, like keeping people injury free is a big
Deal.
impetus, right?
Yeah.
And then helping people with their injuries is also a big impetus, but also being young and fit and staying young and fit, you know, for until the end of your life would be nice.
Yeah.
And Pilates is just a tool to help you age well.
Yeah. I think that's what attracted me to it, because I started practicing yoga really young in high school and eventually taught, and realized that I am hypermobile and was overstretching all my muscles and hurting my joints, and then eventually realized that I needed more strength and not so much flexibility, and I had to be careful of that. And my best friend, who you taught in Boulder, like when you were there, she said she
Which one?
her name's Amanda.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, she started teaching Pilates, and I was like, oh, I love this. This is very satisfying and better for me. And since then I've kind of been hooked, but it's something. Anyway, I don't know. I guess I just wanted to tell you that, but it's something that's interesting. How everyone do you feel like everyone kind of comes to it with a, not necessarily a goal, but a agenda of, I want to, you know, if you when you stop moving, things stop working, or like what
there's generally people who come to Pilates, generally, especially if they're coming to instructors on a higher education level, are coming to them specifically to deal with a pre-existing condition. Mm-hmm. So it could be a chronic condition, or it could be a temporary injury or something. You know, the bread and butter of an advanced practitioner of Pilates is people with something going on with them. The bigger studios that, let's say, have like a 12 reformer class are catering to the more able-bodied person. So different studios do different things. This particular studio is more interested in a personalized approach, where you could be actually quite injured and still move a lot around your injury, right? Yeah. Or rehab it over time. Or we're not doctors and we're not PTs, but we're somewhere in between. Like we're not quite like, we're a little bit too knowledgeable to like pretend that we can't help, but we're also not healers, right? And we're also not physicians. So it becomes like a weird blur, because like I try not to tell anybody that I can fix their injury, but I can facilitate safe movement through your injury.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, so that's the demographic of people who come to me.
Right.
And then there are the fitness people who are definitely interested in like having an overall kick-ass session.
Yeah.
For sure, you know.
Yeah.
They're just not as prevalent.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to get back to you and moving to New York, and then how you transitioned from photography to Pilates. So you moved to New York when you're 17, 18?
Yeah.
So what was that experience like? What was going through your head? How did you make it happen?
I pieced out of my parents' house like pretty aggressively.
They tell us about that.
Yeah, I turned 18, I saved a bunch of money, and I packed my bags, and I was like, bye.
Didn't you have to have like an interesting situation because you had to get out of going into the army?
Not for me. I mean, I was lucky enough to be in a year where there was like a surplus of women, where I kind of intimated to my to my higher ups that I was interested in going to college versus serving as a secretary for a year and 8 months, and they were just like, fine.
Yeah.
Like they weren't like super jazzed about it, but like they're like, fine, we have like a lot of women and not enough jobs, and we get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I just kind of lucked out. I could have been not so lucky, but I lucked out in the sense that they didn't give me a hard time, but I would have served if, you know, they wanted to argue about it. And then,
so you packed your bags.
Packed my bags, got to New York.
Was that what was your parents' reaction to you moving so young?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I considered their reaction so much that I committed it to memory.
Yeah.
Like, I only remember sort of it being a fact that was non-discussionable.
Yeah.
So the reaction was like, this is just what's gonna happen now. Acceptance, I think, was their reaction. And then, I think it was hard for them probably at first, and it was definitely hard for me.
Are they still there, both of them?
No, they moved to Maine a few years after I moved to New York.
Oh, okay. Maine?
Yeah. They moved to the States because my brothers also moved to the States at some point. And, so they're here, but at first I was sort of by myself and figured that out. Got a job in the East Village at like the last sort of like photo printing place, like when people like were transitioning from film to digital.
Yeah.
So this was like 2000, before like digital cameras were like as popular.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was my first job.
How did you choose the East Village?
I think it was like a Craigslist job opening.
Okay. It happened.
And I just went,
Yeah.
And I had an apartment in the Lower East Side, also a Craigslist apartment, with like a lesbian couple and a Great Dane. And I was doing that, and that was like a couple of years worth of my life before I went to school.
So did you go to school for photography then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So eventually I decided to go to the School of Visual Arts and got my degree there.
Were you liking it in New York? Did you feel like you had community? What were those first couple of years like? Were they exciting?
Yeah,
What was it like being in the city? Was it like what you thought when you were 12?
Yeah. It was that and like even more. Like it was what I thought of when I was 12 and 10 million times better.
Yeah.
I mean, like my level of going crazy is probably not as some other people's, but it was, like your 20 to 25 was a pretty fun time.
Yeah.
I mean, there was nothing cooler to me than like, this was still when you could smoke in bars too. So there's nothing cooler to me than like sitting in like an old man bar in the East Village and having drinks with friends and hearing stories from people who have been here forever.
That's like my favorite thing now.
You know, so
Yeah.
that's kind of what we did.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so you go to school for photography, and then you're working at that photography shop, and then what do you do after school?
So after school, I worked as an artist assistant for a while. I got a scholarship to do a semester abroad in a graduate program in London.
Cool.
When I did that, came back, had a total nervous breakdown of like, I don't want to be an artist assistant forever. I don't want to work at a gallery. I don't want to really like work at a magazine. Magazines are dying. You know what I mean? I don't want to work at like, you know, like cosmopolitan.com, like with my, you know, with my degree, like I don't want to do like peripheral art world stuff, you know, which a lot of the people that graduated from did, and I really respect them and think that everybody chose their path, but I didn't want that path where it's like you're sort of like maybe a photo editor, junior photo editor at a desk in a cubicle and a super non-committal job, you know, or like you kind of work your way up to being main photo editor of this thing that I don't have a lot of feelings about, you know. So I kind of saw that line kind of drawn out, and I just didn't want to be one of those girls at like Refinery 29, like puttering around in a cute outfit and bangs, you know. So and all due respect to them, I just didn't, like, that wasn't me. So I said, like, what, after a few years of doing things like that, being, you know, a cute girl walking around offices with bangs and cute shoes, getting paid to sort of photo edit things, I decided that I was going to go home and have like the first true like breakdown of my life, where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing and I need to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, what if really the one thing that I like doing is going to Pilates class, which I was doing all through college.
And how did you discover that?
I had moved across the street from the studio that we're in now. So at that point, I would just come in twice a day and do Pilates as like a therapy.
How did you meet the current owner?
He was here.
How did you?
So after, you know, like after being like a student here for maybe 5 years, when I got certified, he offered me a job, and then he offered me a partnership.
So cool.
Yeah.
So
organic. It was kind of organic.
So what was your like relationship to fitness? And
Zero. I didn't have any relationship to fitness before.
Did you know anything about Pilates?
I mean, I didn't know anything about Pilates before I came into this particular studio. I've always been interested in dance and interested in the arts in general, and like all the things that I just said that I'm trying not to do, right?
Yeah.
But and like consciously didn't, like, I don't talk about that part of like the thing, because like I don't want to be lumped up to like, here's another dancer who like became a Pilates instructor, because it's not interesting to me personally. I didn't come to it from an injury. I came to it as like a therapy. Like, I was stressed out college student that needed somewhere to go, and so to me, the Pilates studio was always the most, like, the safest, nicest sense of community. Like, I have people that I took Pilates with 10 years ago who are still good friends of mine, and they're not Pilates instructors. We just knew each other from class.
Cool.
So this particular
It was
studio
like your
is
central
magic.
perk.
Yeah, this was definitely a place where you caught up with some of the East Village folk. But and there's still people who come here who I was just taking classes with, and now I'm their teacher.
Cool.
So that's very rare.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I never knew that there was a snooty part to Pilates because I only knew this studio.
Which is
So,
the best.
which people that came in here were tattooed. They were of all permutations of sex, you know what I mean? Like different sexual orientations, everything in between. Different colored hair, different colored skin. Like, I never knew it was like sort of like a white girl thing. I never knew it was like a skinny white girl thing. In this space, it was always like all shapes came into class. So I had to learn sort of like a roundabout that Pilates had a stigma.
Yeah, that's a really great first.
Occur to me. Didn't occur to me. Like, when I went to do teacher training and I realized I was like the biggest girl there, I was surprised almost. Like I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect it to be a bunch of, like, that my classmates were a bunch of ex-dancers. It didn't occur to me that was the norm.
Yeah. How long had the studio been here when you first started coming, and
Probably
how did
5 years.
Okay.
Or maybe less a little bit. And it was fairly new when I started coming here, and then it always sort of, my business partner bought it from the original owner who moved away, and then I became partners with him.
Does he have a dance background? Was this always this energy that's in the
but
studio?
like, he's sort of like a dude. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't like have that sort of like life, like, you know, ballerina-y kind of thing. So, not to pick on the ballerinas, they're wonderful people. But the teachers that worked here they were all shapes, you know, they were kind of all...
It was always...
Yeah, like they didn't have a look. You kind of clicked with who you clicked with. There was never like a side-eyeing kind of thing. Yeah. Like, it just, or I didn't notice it. Yeah. But I don't think it existed. Yeah. In this particular space.
So then how did you decide where to train, and what was that experience like when you get in the room and you realize that it's not like the room?
I decided to train at a school called the Keene School at the time, which focused on anatomy, being able to work with special populations. So that's just kind of, I just happened to pick it. Okay. You know, so I had to kind of learn like the exercises later, but I learned a lot about how to deal with various injuries and pregnancies and post-pregnancies and things like that. That was
very useful.
Most what we kind of studied, and that's what the school is known for. Yeah. And then I did a lot of continuing education after that.
Going back to where we were before, I kind of like got on a tangent with following things I was curious about. But you're going through this breakdown. Was that before or after you did your teacher training?
Before.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in my parents' house, and I'm like, I can't go back
back
to this sort of like job, and I want to do something that actually helps people, and I want to do something that makes a difference, and I you know, like, or whatever it is that you think about. And I want to do something that will, you know, has immediate effect on your surroundings. So the only thing that I could think of is like the one thing that I wake up in the morning looking forward to doing was like either doing my work day so I could go to Pilates at the end. You know, like that was like my bonus after a long week, is like, oh, I get to go to Pilates finally. Yeah. So I was like, well, you know, I by the trying to do like an elimination, like what do I hate doing the least and what do I enjoy doing the most, all roads led to Pilates.
So you do your teacher training.
Yeah.
You finish that.
Yep.
Did you know that you wanted to be a studio owner?
No. I didn't know if I'd be a good teacher. I didn't know if I would, like if I'd get a job once I graduated. Like there's too much unknown.
Yeah.
So studio owner is something that you kind of think about like maybe much later in your Pilates life. I think Jeremy, my business partner, wanted to go to PT school.
Mm-hmm.
So he needed someone to work with him so he could go back to school. I made some major changes that you take a partner, you kind of have to like acknowledge that they're going to have a vision of what they'd like to improve or change. And, it alienated not only some of the staff, but it alienated some of the core regulars of the studio. So that was really hard.
Yeah.
Transition to lose student also opened the door for new student.
But how were you mentally doing through that, and then also leaving photography and this art that you had pursued and gone to school for?
Yeah, it was I mean, the reality of being like a professional artist became very like the naivete of like, and one day I will be discovered, was pretty early on in like college, where you're like, oh wait a minute, like I'm probably like, no one's gonna offer me that like big commission deal that I imagined would happen when I was 12, right?
Yeah.
But I never really left photography because I found that because of the nature of what I'm interested in photographing, which was mostly me, a lot of self-portraiture lends itself to what I'm doing now. So I always considered like the combining Pilates and photography to be a thing that I was not going to let go. So that I have always like a photo project going.
Yeah.
So if it's me dealing with my body, if it's me exercising or whatever, I always combine Pilates and art.
It seems like a very welcomed skill to have for...
It's fun.
Yeah. And you're amazing at it.
So it's to me, it's
amazing.
like I can't give either one of them up completely for the other. So I have it was super organic to say like, well, I'm going to do a photo shoot and I'm going to do the reality that I live in, which is I teach all day.
Right.
So it's not going to be me at the club, it's going to be me at the Pilates studio. Right. Where it used to be me in my apartment or me in like whatever reality I was in.
Right.
This is my reality.
Yeah.
So it's definitely autobiographical, but also true to, sort of documenting movement.
With your method and the potato method, which we already kind of talked about, you're all about empowering people to move freely in their bodies. So how did you come up with that phrase, and what exactly does it mean? I think we kind of addressed it before, but I just want to make sure, because I think it's unfortunately the free part is rare in fitness.
Is it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is me like being like somewhat sleepy and not thinking about my words. But yeah, I mean, I think people have like a specific structure of like, this is how it should look, or this is how you should be, and this is the like results driven, or like instead of just moving to move, or moving to feel good, or moving.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough. I have a lot of ignorance about like other people's dogmas, I suppose. So I surround myself with people that I'm interested in listening to. Actual noise that I want to listen to shares my point of view of move because it feels good. Yeah. Move because you need to. Move so you can age well. If you move a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, no one cares.
Yeah.
Right? So it depends on what your priorities are. Like, if you're in a results-driven person, you're going to need a results-driven teacher. You can't seek me out for that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it depends on what, if your results are spot toning, I'm probably not going to be the right teacher for you. If your results are walking out of here after an hour of movement feeling better, then 10,000 instructors are the right instructors for you. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
that's all we do. Like, that's
Yeah.
their only job
Yeah.
is to actually move you this way, move you that way, move you this way, move you that way, and then you leave feeling better.
Yeah.
The precision that is in Pilates shouldn't be neglected, right? These are precise movements, but there's a lot of room, there's a lot of wiggle room within the precision, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're interested in doing it literally the one way, you'll find the teacher that'll guide you through that.
Yeah.
I feel like that my immediate peers teach the body in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you do the exercise and the way I do the exercise will be probably very different.
Yeah.
So move freely within the parameters of good biomechanics and what works for your particular body. I don't know, like there's a lot of shades of gray in there.
Yeah.
But move freely means not like dance around the room with scarves. It means do the exercise, but like also allow yourself to not be so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know,
don't
like
hurt yourself.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself. Like
forcing.
Don't force yourself into a position. Be an adult, you know, and make decisions that are good for your particular bone structure.
Yeah. I listened to you on another podcast when I was preparing for this, like I mentioned, and when I heard you talking about something really interesting, speaking of imposter syndrome, which is something I think we all deal with, but you compared it to being like the song of the summer that people love, but inevitably get sick of, and fearing that your style of what we were talking about, liberated movement, could swing into that direction. But I don't think that could ever happen because I think it's so refreshing. But can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that sometimes
it?
things feel really refreshing, and then you're tired of how refreshing they feel, and you want it. Like, the pendulum always goes back and forth, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the same in fashion. Like, loose clothes one season, super tailored clothes another season, loose clothes again, because you get tired of this. And you get tired of that. You know, high-waisted jeans, low-waisted jeans, high-waisted jeans, low-waisted jeans. Like, so to me, it's like, right now, I think people are reacting to the liberation of Pilates as being like Pilates for everybody, move the way that makes you feel good. And then maybe the pendulum shifts back to actually, like, I kind of miss the days where, like, I had to be more specific and, like, uncomfortable and, you know, like, I think that there is room to acknowledge that freedom of movement, you know, it's the same politically, you know, like super liberal, super conservative, super liberal, super conservative.
So
like,
interesting.
It goes back and forth, you know, like you get tired of the freedom. Or you get tired of like, do it this way, I don't care. Like, versus like, no, you have to do it this one way. And that's sometimes the guidelines and the structure of like an uber structured, super specific class feels refreshing after the reign of freedom. You know, so that's how I feel about it, where it's like, right now this tastes really good, but after so much chocolate, you're going to crave vanilla. And after so much vanilla, you're going to crave chocolate.
So interesting.
You know?
To think of that. And
so like I think about it, you know, the same way. It's like there's going to be like a revolution, and then there's going to be a backlash. And then there's going to be a backlash to the backlash, and then there'll be another revolution. Like
it's so interesting. Well,
it's a little bit of self-awareness. That, like, do your truth. Know that maybe it's not a forever popular truth.
But it will be again.
And it will be again, and it won't be, and it will be.
It's out of your control.
It's out of my control, so I can only do what I think is the right thing to do. It's popular right this second.
Yeah.
Because it's fresh. It sounds fresh. But, like, it's the same with models. Like, you get tired of seeing, like, the same person in every ad. You need to look at a different face.
I once heard you say that when you're teaching, the thing you care most about is presence. And that's one reason, like I was telling you, like I started doing Pilates because it's that time where, like, much like recording a podcast, my phone is away from me and I have to focus all of my energy on listening.
Yeah.
That I can't think about anything else.
Yeah.
It's very meditative. Can you talk about that a
Well,
bit?
Pilates is one of the only jobs, it feels like the kind of job that when I'm teaching 8 hours in a row, I am that person's teacher for an hour and an hour and an hour and an hour, where I don't check my phone and I'm not available to text you back. And Pilates instructor in general is so present when they're teaching by default.
You have to be, or
You
you
know,
sound silly. If
you can't
zone out.
you can have an off day and a non-off
Yeah.
day, but you can't be texting your boyfriend like you would when you have a desk job, and you can kind of zone out
Multitask.
and kind of come back into it, and then go down like a YouTube wormhole and come back into your job. And like, this is one of those jobs where you're on as a performer doing a job, like you're professionally on, and you're emotionally present for your student. Everybody can phone it in sometimes, but if you phone it in the majority of the time, you get caught.
Does that energize you or drain you?
Both. Yeah. Different days, right? So
Yeah.
it's like different cycles. Like some days I'm like, if I have to say these words one more time, I will murder someone. And then some days I'm like, I'm so excited to say these words. Again, you're organic, so there isn't like one way of being. You know, today I walked in and I had so much anxiety about teaching a long shift. I was like, I don't know if I have anything to teach these people. I don't know what I have to give them. I don't know that I'm going to say anything they haven't heard me say to them a million times. But then I have to think that this person comes to see me maybe once or twice a week. This is 2 hours out of their week. Let's say I teach 30 hours a week. I say these words 30 times a week. This person heard them twice.
Yeah.
So the relationship to the words is so different.
Yeah.
What I have to give them is way more interesting to them than I think it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What advice do you have for other Pilates teachers who maybe feel that way, or just in general?
I mean, from imposter syndrome to burnt out syndrome to all the different feelings and syndromes that you feel when you're, you know, like wherever you are in your Pilates journey, right? The thing that helps the most is studying with someone else. So again, I'm lucky to live in the city where I can go take from the best of the best and get inspired and hear somebody else's voice and somebody else's cueing and get out of my own head and keep learning. That solves 90% of the problem.
How often do you do that? What is your personal practice?
My personal practice could be way better. I try and see some of my favorite teachers at least once a week. That doesn't always happen, but once a week is like the bare minimum that I go out of my studio to study with someone else. It should probably be more, but that's something I'm always working on. I know teachers that like do Pilates every day. I know teachers that haven't done Pilates in years. Like, you know, like there's so many gradations there, but I think it should be the case that we strive to hear somebody else's voice other than our own, because we talk so much
Yeah.
that it's just so refreshing.
Yeah.
It changes how you're going to teach for the rest of the week.
Right. Do you practice on your own and teach
I'm
yourself?
terrible at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people
I
in
would be
this studio
too.
specifically too who are like, their self-practice is so great. Like they'll come in an hour early, do an hour workout, get in the zone, get in their body, have a great shift, you know? I am not one of those people. I cannot focus on my own self for long enough,
Yeah.
especially as a studio owner. If I didn't own the studio, I'd feel differently about it, but there's so much minutia that once I'm in here,
Yeah,
I
you feel like
can't
you need to be
focus
working.
for long enough to do my
Yeah.
own thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I think that people that I'm always very admiring of the person
Yeah.
who comes in early and like gets in their body so they can kind of like have empathy for their students.
Yeah.
It's like readily available to them.
You just felt it.
Yeah, you just felt it, and it's so much easier to give it.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes I'm giving it from a place of deficit where I'm like, I actually don't remember exactly how that felt to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to teach it to you because I know how to teach this to you, but I should probably like revisit this.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember feeling when I was teaching so much yoga in college, I would make up like a really great flow and feel jealous of the class
That's
I was
right.
teaching.
Yes,
like, this
always.
is so good. I wish I was doing this and not
I
using
teach
it.
the class that I want to be taking.
Yeah.
So the person who comes to me that week is getting the thing that I wish I was doing.
Yeah.
Every
and you
time.
may not be getting it.
And I'm definitely not getting it.
Yeah.
Right? But I'll teach it 8 hours in a row.
Yeah.
But it's usually like movements that I wish I was doing myself. If it's consciously or subconsciously, like we're doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
So, a thing about Pilates that's tough is the inaccessibility and cost associated with it in terms of, you know, machine classes are difficult to afford.
Yeah.
And, you know, what would you say to people who want to commit to a daily or weekly practice, but that might not be financially feasible or have it in their community? We already talked about the internet, but anything else that you could say?
It's a affluent person's practice, you know. So we try and not pretend that that's not happening. Do you know what I mean? Like we have to acknowledge that this is a practice for people with ancillary income.
Do you think that could change at some point if the
Not
popularity
according
and
to
demand?
how I'm. Again, like the digital revolution of doing Pilates has changed the accessibility. So unless you're unless you're willing to either invest financially in your Pilates practice or do online classes, there's a disconnect between like people's finances and what's available. What we're hoping, longer term goal, is that health insurance will subsidize as they do gyms and things like that, or office, like, you know, employers will you know, give you some allowance for your wellness. We started getting some of that here, where people invoice their bosses their 10 class card. Pilates will be considered preventative medicine.
Cool.
So if that answers that question, it's just not as popular as it might be in 10 years.
No, it definitely does, and I hope that there's more of that.
Yeah.
A couple questions that I ask everyone. We always discuss bodies and body image, which we've already been discussing, and the way I usually launch into it is asking, you know, in the society that we live in, with really idealizing one body shape as the ideal, do you ever have what I call a bad body image moment? Or it doesn't even have to do with size necessarily, but just not feeling your best. And how do you shift out of that moment so it doesn't become a bad body image day or week?
Right.
What are some of your like personal
Yeah,
practices?
like to get really personal, like I don't know. I mean, I think every day is a bad body image day in the world that I am in.
Yeah.
So there isn't a day where I wake up and I'm like, yes, nailed it. You know, like this is exactly what I want to look like. You know, so
I think everybody feels that way.
yeah, like I'm not really practicing what I preach where I say like, you know, like love the body you're in
Right.
and like just come and exercise.
Right.
But I do feel better after I exercise usually. And I try not to measure my worth by how I feel, because I don't always think that I try and sort of say that like feelings aren't always facts, right? So just because I feel worthless doesn't mean that I don't have worth, which is sort of like the human condition.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'll wake up and I'm definitely not that keen on leaving the house. Like it's never like yes, like I'm just gonna strut my way to work. It's gonna be great.
Right.
Um,
Are there any thoughts that you tell yourself that help you to me you seem like being around you and meeting you for the first time I was like, wow, she's so beautiful and confident and like cool and I want to be her friend.
that is
so
very
like
nice.
that's the air that you like give off.
If you fake it till you make it, man.
Yeah.
Like I think I have to embody some persona that makes it tolerable to feel bad. Like I don't try to not feel bad. Do you know what I mean? So like I embrace.
You feel your feelings.
Yeah, like I
instead of
embrace feeling.
coping them.
Yeah, like and I'm
Yeah.
not trying to solve not feeling bad by feeling something else.
Yeah.
So if you feel bad, but like put some lipstick on and suck it up, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like feel bad, but then go do your job. And feel bad during it. We feel bad about feeling bad. So I tell people often to stop feeling bad about feeling bad. Like don't like that's double bad.
Yeah.
So feel really bad. Like feel really shitty. Feel like bad and big and fat or too short or too tall or too something. Feel that.
Yeah.
And then do the thing you need to do.
Yeah.
Like, why is feeling bad stopping you from what you need to do?
I think we all clench up and we're like, if I allow myself to feel this, it'll be Pandora's box and I'll never
It is.
I'll never get
and
out.
Open that box.
Yeah.
Let it all be out there. All like feel really bad.
Yeah.
And then
it moves
what?
through you.
Like, but
yeah.
and it doesn't. Let's say it's always there. Like
Yeah.
you're always feeling bad. What, like other than sitting at home and like being a hoarder,
Yeah.
what are the options?
And it's not like you're feeling good. You're just like preventing
Just
feeling bad.
feel really bad. Like go
Yeah.
outside to do the thing. Like if you got up and you like read your favorite book and then went back to sleep, that's a fine day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're feeling bad and what you're doing is trying to like find solutions to feeling bad instead of actually feeling the feeling.
Yeah.
And I've kind of had it not with other people, but with myself. I'm like, so I can mask this with like, I can go eat a cake and maybe I'll feel better.
Yeah.
Or I could like go to like make out with a guy and maybe that'll make me feel better. But like those things are temporary solutions to
Yeah,
feeling
coping
bad.
mechanisms.
Right? So feel really bad. And then when somebody asks you how you're doing, say, I feel really bad.
Yeah.
Then what? You know, like nothing, like you don't feel necessarily any worse.
Yeah. And we can't feel, if you don't practice the feeling, whether it's bad or good, then you can't feel the like richness of sadness and the richness of happiness. Like you're just, I think so many people, and another reason.
We're trying to find like a tolerable hum.
Numb.
Yeah. And I don't really buy that as a way of existing. Like I'd rather the highs be really high and the lows be really low and very little in between.
Yeah.
Versus
like New York.
Versus just like existing in a safe realm of feelings.
That's very inspiring to me, and kind of reminds me of this thing my therapist told me maybe a year ago now. Because I would always say over and over again, I'm someone who feels so many feelings. And she looked at me and she's like, you don't feel any feelings. You think a lot of thoughts.
Right.
But I wasn't in my body feeling anything.
Yeah.
And Pilates, the motion of forcing myself to be in my body was very uncomfortable to
very
me.
Intense.
Very uncomfortable. And it's intense. And I'm not there 100% of like feeling off my feelings, but I notice when I'm tapping out of life and I'm like, oh, I'm turning to the phone, or I'm turning to work, or I'm turning to the relationship or food or whatever it is. And it feels more uncomfortable now because I've developed that self-awareness. Yeah. But and then I'm frustrated with myself that I have the self-awareness.
You're feeling bad about feeling bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
exactly.
Yeah, and I'm trying to say, like, okay, so you're feeling bad, and why can't that be your zero? Like, zero out at feeling bad. Like, why is that not an okay feeling?
Yeah, why do we try to fix that right away?
Because, you know, and I mean, and there's this whole argument, like, happiness is a choice.
Right.
You know, you can choose, you have to choose to be happy. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, I'm choosing to feel bad because that's my zero. Like, I exist in feeling bad. Like, I don't know how to wake up and feel, like, my comfort zone from how I was raised maybe to, like, my chemical makeup to things outside of my control. I actually revel in feeling bad because if I feel good, I don't do anything. I don't get anything done. I have to feel a little bit angry. I have to feel a little bit jealous. I have to feel a little bit like threatened. I have to feel a little self-hatred and shame spirally and all these things to actually feel inspired to do stuff. If I didn't feel like shitty, I wouldn't do anything. Yeah. I'd be like, cool, this is just fine. Like, I'd be like content with where I was at. Yeah. But I wouldn't compete, and I wouldn't compete with myself to be like better. Right. You know, like it's a huge feeling bad is a huge motivator. Yeah. To get things done.
It's almost it's almost like, why do we have to? I don't like the term. Like, why is it feeling bad? It shouldn't be called that.
Yeah,
to me that's
I'm feeling like I don't feel like I'm a bad. Well, sometimes I feel like I'm a bad person, but
you're feeling what you are.
I'm feeling legitimate, complicated, unpretty feelings, and are maybe having unpretty thoughts. Yeah, and feeling anger and feeling resentment and feeling frustration and feeling jealousy and feeling, you know, like if I wasn't ever jealous of anything, I wouldn't be motivated to try things that scare me. Yeah. You know, like jealousy is a huge motivator. Why is that a bad thing? Right. Like somebody has something that I would also like to have.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it away from them.
It's inspiring.
I just want to do it also. That's great.
Yeah.
You know? And we call it, like, we make it prettier, and we call it, oh, that person inspired me. No, she didn't. You were jealous of her, and you wanted to also do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Own it.
Yeah.
You know? What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Preach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's...
Well said.
That's how I feel about that.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm also highly medicated, so that's you know, that helps.
Yeah.
It helps you be, like, feel things, you
Yeah.
know, like, in a more, like, linear way.
Yeah. So you're on, like, antidepressants?
Give me a cocktail of various various things, because I think that, like, you know, left to my own devices, I would be in a padded room with my thoughts, like like really spiraling far into, like, a very dark place. So I try and, like, be in the dark place, not pretend I'm not dark. Yeah. But be in a place where I can still be a citizen of the world. You know what I mean? Like, I can still be, like, contributing to the world somehow without, like, you know, being institutionalized. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I'd prefer that than, you know, I prefer being medicated and alive and doing stuff than, like, not, right? But it fucks with, like, the way you sort of process information. Yeah. So the darkness, you know, like, you just kind of have to, like, be like, okay, it's dark here. And you, like, sometimes you, like, open a window and, like, a little bit of light comes in, and then you close it back up, and sometimes you open this other window and a little bit of light comes in. But generally it's dark. Yeah. And then, like, that can be okay. Yeah. That's actually allowed. Yeah.
So do you feel like you are more even, I guess, but it
evens. You feel evened out, like, it's a chemical thing, right? So you feel evened out, but you remember what things are supposed to feel like. So you kind of, like, access feeling memory. Like, you remember what it's like to be really pissed off, and then you remember what it's like to be elated, and you remember what it's supposed to be like, you know, but you can't go so low that you can't leave the house. Totally. So you remember what, like, this should make you really happy. So you access the memory of happiness. Yeah. But you're not actually feeling.
Does that frustrate you?
I don't know anymore.
Yeah. How long have you been on?
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know any, like, I can't tell. Because I feel frustrated with so many more, like things that, like, are more, like, pressing, that, like, I can't go down like, too many avenues, because it gets a little too heady. Yeah. For me, I need a break from thinking about.
Yeah. How do you process stress, and how do you, like, are you in therapy? Do you meditate?
Yeah, I mean, I'm psychiatrically treated, which is different than going to weekly, like, regular sort of therapy, or more cognitive therapy or whatever. So it's a different way of dealing with mental illness. But if, you know, like, everybody deals with some level of mental illness, either with themselves or family members, and a lot of it is genetic, you know, and out of your control. So I get frustrated with things that are out of my control. Like, it's not under my control to be sad all the time. Right. That's frustrating to me. Right. You know, it's hard to feel so sad. Yeah. All the time. So yeah, I wish, like, my natural state wasn't so sad.
Yeah. Do you feel like that could change or can change?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't have enough foresight or context yet to know, but I know that feeling so sad all the time has made me also who I am. I would probably be a really different person if that wasn't there. I probably, from birth on some level, like I gravitate toward, the sadder things in life. They interest me more.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you just become more of who you are.
Yeah.
So I have to, I'm accepting the, like if I had like a physical illness, I would have to accept it at some point.
Right.
So it's the same with mental illness. You have to sort of accept that either some days are more manageable than others. Some days you're more well than others.
Yeah. This is a really interesting conversation for me because I think we all do it. I think it's kind of a spectrum, but I have a tendency towards melancholy and a liking towards feel sad things and feel more comfortable there. Yeah. But yet my entire life I have pushed against that, like going upstream to...
We're not supposed to.
Exactly. This is why this is like a watershed.
But what's the
conversation
supposed to? I don't know who the arbiter of supposed to is.
Yeah.
Right.
Society.
So society is too vague of a term, and your parents are fucked up on their own level.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I hate the most is like, well, everyone's doing this as like a sentence, or like people like. The people think blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Either name names or don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And then, I've never really believed in supposed to, ever. Like, I knew that colloquially, like, happiness was like a goal, like a universal, like agreed upon better choice. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't work for me.
Yeah. It's interesting because like I when I hear you talking about that, and when you said that you are, I think you said like you're sad that you have this tendency towards sadness and it's just how you are, and then like that made me sad. Like I wish I could just like reach in and grab it.
Yeah, but why? Do you know what I mean? Though?
Yeah,
like there's a part of me that's like sad is just a valid feeling as happy.
Yeah.
And also like, are they that different?
Right.
Like, are they polar opposites and like one is better than the other? Like, I just don't know enough. This isn't my field, but
it's kind of like body image. It's kind of like,
I don't know who told me I was supposed to be thin.
Right.
But I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
And I don't know who's the decider.
Right.
And therefore, I was going to be the shape that I am. And I'm also going to have the temperament that I have. And a lot of it is like, well, women should be
small,
something small
make
and meek
smaller.
and visually appealing and attractive to men,
right,
or whatever, right? I don't know. I'm just saying.
But in some cultures, larger bodies are considered,
and then the skinny girl feels out of place,
right.
So I don't know what supposed to is, and I generally find whatever you're supposed to do to be the most insulting choice.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to XYZ, and I'm like, well, I'm just probably going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Because this is dumb.
And like I so am behind that when it comes to bodies. Like it's easier to conceptualize like I'm so happy body diversity exists. It would be so boring if it didn't.
But body diversity would as a term is so wrong, because like body diversity exists because like humans are humans. Like body diversity isn't like an intelligent term. Like body positivity and body diversity shouldn't even be
Used.
concepts, because it's like saying like, I'm so glad races exist.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it's not.
Why am I
That's
saying?
dumb.
I'm saying it because I heard someone else say it.
But do you know what I mean?
I've been
like
using
you're
it.
not dumb, but like
No,
the
no,
term
this
is dumb.
This
because,
is why I love
but
it.
it's like oh, I'm so glad so many sexualities exist.
Yeah, it doesn't
like,
make
that
any
makes
sense.
me feel so good, and I'm like, they would exist if you felt
Right.
whatever it is that you felt about
Right.
them. Like
Yeah.
they're facts.
Yeah, it's just a fact.
Yeah, like different bodies are born. Like people are born without limbs. Like
Right. Right.
what do you
right,
want
right.
to do about it? Like,
Yeah.
do you want to celebrate body diversity? Give me a break.
Right. Yeah. No.
Human
thank you.
nature, we're organic beings. Like, I'm so glad there's so many types of animals.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. I'm literally repeating that, like you were saying about, like, because I heard people say it and it sounded.
Body diversity, I mean.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I'm gonna stop saying it.
No, but I wish people stopped and thought about what they're saying. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean you're so glad you're celebrating body positivity? I'm like, this human has a body.
Right.
You're sanctioning it okay for them to exist now?
Yeah.
Like what's the panel?
Right.
Who's on the panel
Yeah.
of judging? Like, oh, now we're celebrating body positivity.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Right.
what?
No, it's ridiculous.
I'm so like, it's like, I don't know, it's like looking at fish in the sea and being like, it's time to celebrate the, like,
yeah.
the shark.
Right, right.
He's going to exist regardless if you're
Right,
celebrating
right.
him or not.
Right.
So you're saying to them that that now we've come full circle.
Right.
And it's time to acknowledge their non-disgusting existence and, celebrate their curves.
Right.
I'm like, could you be more condescending?
Right.
And the amount of times that people come up to me and tell me I'm brave
Yeah.
is the problem.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they mean harm.
Right.
I'm saying that your thinking is backwards. A firefighter is brave. A white girl teaching Pilates that's like 30 pounds heavier than what you'd like her to be is not brave.
Yeah.
Let's put things in perspective. So first, I definitely don't want to be put in a category of bravery.
Yeah.
Then I definitely don't want to be put in a category of being celebrated for my bravery.
Right.
It's fucked.
Yeah.
and the way to change it is to point it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whoever gets it will get it, and whoever doesn't
Right.
get it won't get it. But like,
No, I'm glad you pointed out to me in my language, because I was just like, I was about to like make a totally different point, and I just
Sure.
like casually used that term of like.
and it's a fine term to use because it's like it's not harming anyone. It's just wrong-headed.
Right. No, and I totally see that.
It's not a racial slur. It's just,
But it's just silly because it's like
just-
saying, I'm so glad there's so many different races. It
Yeah,
makes
it's
the
like-
world so beautiful. And that's what that was like the sentiment I was saying. It's just kind of cheesy.
Yeah,
It's
I'm so
duh.
glad. Yeah, it's time to celebrate black skin. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's not
Yeah.
time to celebrate black skin. It's just a fact.
Right.
That exists. I don't need to, like, it's
Celebrate it.
It doesn't need to be
Right.
like all of a sudden like pointed out as like so beautiful.
Right.
Like it's just regular.
Right. Well, I think the whole reason I like said that term and I brought that up, and I promise I'm gonna like land the plane so we can now it's like fully pillow talk because I'm like getting a little loopy myself.
I think it should be.
But this is like the best part of the conversation when we like forget we're recording and just like running and talking. But I was saying about I wanted to shift to like the comparison of bodies to mental health.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was like 7 minutes ago, but when we were talking about how I had this sense of how we make sad bad and we make happy good
Yes.
is the same as fat being bad and
Right.
thin being good.
That's right.
And, you know, I guess why that is for fat and thin is, you know, culture, the media, a million things, beauty standards, blah, blah, blah. But with happiness, I think it's all of those things. But on some level, my question to you is, it's maybe not society and it's maybe not that. Maybe it is myself being like, I know happiness feels so good. And sadness feels so bad personally. I want you to feel happiness because I like you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, human nature we're pleasure seekers.
Right.
So it is abnormal to not seek pleasure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you put a mouse in, like, a cage, and if it presses a button, it gets food. It'll eat until it dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the nature is to find pleasure.
Yeah.
And when something is going against nature, it's unnatural, right? So your impetus to say, I want this person who I like to not feel pain is absolutely human nature.
Right.
Because you have empathy. Empathic people who aren't sociopaths, right? Opposite. You can put yourself in my shoes and you go like, oh, I don't want my friend to feel negative feelings. I want her to feel pleasurable feelings.
Yeah.
You're just being human.
Yeah.
But if everybody again is so different, like there's a part of me that's like, I find joy in accepting who I am.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like part of it is a body thing, part of it is a mental thing, where it's like if I don't have to pretend to be happy, then there's something joyous and pleasurable about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, pretending to put a happy face on everything when that's not your truth is not pleasurable.
Yeah. And I guess it's...
And it doesn't mean you're being bitchy, and it doesn't mean you're hurting other people, and it doesn't mean that you're taking it out on them. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
like
of course.
if your temperament is somewhat dark, and then owning there's a level of joy there.
Yeah.
That I wish was just okay.
Yeah. Well, it's just the joy of feelings, anything.
Yeah,
it's
the joy of being, sort of
human.
Yeah, and sort of okay with like your lot in life.
Yeah.
In a way, this is just the cards you were dealt.
Yeah.
Fighting the cards all the time is exhausting. Sometimes you fight, and sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose, and sometimes you accept.
Yeah.
You know, you can't choose your parents. You love them regardless.
Right.
You know, so I mean, again, like there are people with like actual problems.
Yeah.
Like the problems that I'm experiencing in my day-to-day life are not in the scale of like real life world problems that big of a deal. Like this person's a little like bummed out because they're like, what, you know? Yeah. So perspective is helpful.
Yeah.
You know, like we're just sitting around talking about a podcast, and it's going to resonate. Feelings. Yeah, and it's going to resonate with some people, and it's going to piss some other people off.
Yeah.
And it's going to, it's going to have a rainbow of reactions. But really what we're doing is just two girls talking about their feelings to each other. Because we want to, and we have the privilege of doing that. Yeah. And we can acknowledge that that's a privilege, not like a right. Yeah. You know, there are people that are going through like some major shit right now.
And have no one to talk to.
And have no one to talk to, and they're not sitting in a comfortable environment sharing their feelings about their feelings about their feelings.
Yes.
You know, getting real meta.
Yeah.
About like their privilege.
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
This is fantastic.
But you know, like if I acknowledge that I'm being really meta about my privilege, then like at least I have some self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's the non-self-awareness that scares me. It's the goopy non-self-awareness that scares me.
And that's everywhere. And that is so prevalent.
Like you're like if you're gonna like if you're gonna do this, like if you're gonna sit here and talk about our feelings as like, you know, relatively like
raw,
fine, but like also relatively like fine people leading fine lives.
right?
Let's like acknowledge the fact that like this is just like a bonus to our life.
Yeah.
It's not. This is the extra like icing on the cake of the life.
Yeah.
We don't need this to survive. We
Right.
need this because we like talking about ourselves to each other.
Yeah. Like this is such a to even be aware of your feelings is such a privileged conversation.
Like we have time to sit around. Like clinical depression doesn't like exist when you're just like
trying to get by.
Yeah, like you don't have enough food to eat.
Yeah.
You know, like no one talks about Pilates when they don't have like they can't feed their kids. Right. So like I have to like walk around like who's my audience? My audience is people that are okay.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm so glad that they are.
Yeah.
And, you know, the volunteer work that I do is to make it is for me. Do you know what I mean? Like when I volunteer my time, it's so I can sort of feel like I'm not like walking around like a sense of millennial entitlement with everything.
Yeah.
Like,
what is the volunteer work that you do?
I try and open up a few hours a week for LGBTQ students who are too threatened to go to like an equinox or you know what I mean, like but maybe want to move. Yeah. So that's sort of what I kind of am within my purview of like being able to do something. And that is right now and like is not enough, but it's enough. Yeah. You know, and it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And there's always more I could do because I'm privileged to be able to do that. But I like to have enough self-awareness to know that even this conversation is something that like I celebrate and acknowledge, and I'm happy to have. I want us to not have it not thinking where we are in the world as we're having it. Yeah.
And I think that's so common that most people don't. I am guilty of forgetting all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Like I'm so mad when like the train doesn't work, where I'm like, there are people that can't afford to go on the train. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I have these moments where I'm like, shut up. Yeah. Like, you're fine. You're going to go home and you're going to order delicious food and you're going to have a nice evening. Like
perspective is very
like I have
helpful.
Yeah, I take a lot of time to have some perspective.
Yeah. Okay, this is going to be a hard
transition. Yeah.
But
what's your favorite color?
Was about your personal style, and I just think you, I don't know, have the best style from when I walked in here and what I see when I follow you online. You have a very clear aesthetic. Is that something that you've developed, or have you always had that?
Always.
And what advice do you have for people developing a personal style?
Do people want to develop
I do. What advice do you have for me?
Okay, so if you wanted to develop a personal style, then I would say that what makes you feel like if you wear something that you're very comfortable wearing, that's your personal style.
And just own it.
Yeah, like if you like wearing sweatpants and like a tank top, rock those sweatpants and a tank top.
Yeah. Cool.
That's your style.
Done. I did it. Okay, something I always ask people on this podcast, what are your morning routines? What are like the first 3 things you do when you wake up in the morning? Do you have anything?
They're terrible. Panicked look at like my email. Terrible way to start the morning. Don't do that to yourself. If you could like change one thing about your morning routine, that should probably be it. If you wake up in the morning and you're panically checking like all your email accounts, that just gives you a sense of the kind of day you're gonna have, you know? So that's first thing, and then there's a copious amount of coffee that comes in to like fuel the panic and trying to like, I'm a very quick responder, so it's like I'll instead of just being like, okay, there are 15 emails to answer and like I'll answer them at my leisure because none of this is life and death. I try and like respond to everyone way too quickly, and then that's the morning routine. It's just like shot to hell. Like there's no like laying out of the crystals, and then like my meditation room and like deep breaths and like just like a foamy latte waiting for me and like the New York Times. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, did anybody die? And how time sensitive are these emails?
Yeah.
Not good advice.
What about in the evening when you're don't record a podcast at 9:30 p.m. with someone who like keeps you imprisoned before your flight?
Total prison. Yeah. Think about all the people that are really in prison.
Oh man. We're very privileged. That can be the title of this podcast.
They're prisoners of war.
And you're a prisoner of Pilates. Prisoner of podcasts.
And they're hungry. No, they're evening? God. Netflix.
What are you watching right now? What do you like? Anything
Mindhunter.
on? And I hear it's good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be my next show.
Dark.
Okay. There's a million more questions that I usually ask, but
Go for it.
Do
it.
I've never had a podcast start on one day and end on another day.
Do it.
We're getting
We're doing
close.
it.
Okay, so say the first thing that comes to mind. I'll warn you, they get harder as they go.
Okay.
Favorite color?
Clear.
Oh, I like that. Best thing you've eaten in the last week?
Pizza.
Greatest lesson on relationships?
Don't date an alcoholic.
Greatest lesson on family?
They're the only thing you got.
Greatest lesson on spirituality, what you think happens when we die? All of that. God.
As a Jew, nothing happens when you die.
Okay. What are you afraid of, but you're doing anyway?
Everything.
What is your favorite part of your life right now?
Right now is recording this podcast, but maybe like outside of this podcast, getting to travel.
Cool. Okay, this is just a way to recommend things in these categories. So they can be ultimate favorites or things you're loving right now. You're trapped on a deserted island and you can bring with you one piece of music, one movie, one book, and one food. What do you bring?
Music, Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet. Book, Call Me By Your Name. It's going to be a movie that's coming out next month, and that's probably going to be the movie.
Cool.
Made out of the book. And what was the other one? Food?
Yeah.
Definitely pizza.
Cool. Okay. The name of this podcast is Let It Out. Do you feel like I wrung you dry? Is there anything you wished you would have gotten
Oh my
to
God,
talk
I
about
let
that you
it
didn't?
out. I definitely let it out. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for doing this.
Do you think I let it out?
You sure
Okay.
did.
Good.
I'm so sorry it's so late
Why?
and I'm
Sorry.
loopy and I feel like I asked bad
I think
questions
it made
and I
it
wasn't
really good because it made it weirder than the usual.
I think so too.
Peppy. Like if you caught me at like 2:00 in the afternoon
Yeah.
with like a cup of coffee,
Totally.
it would be a totally different
And
conversation.
me too. And I think it was weird too because I prepared the day we were supposed to do this.
Yeah.
And then today I was like, I'm going to re-prepare. I'm going to re-listen to her on all the podcasts. I'm going to go over my notes. And I didn't. I just walked in here.
Yeah.
And I hadn't like even read my notes. So some of my questions were like, that doesn't even make sense. And I was like reading my like notes I wrote a month ago.
No.
Anyway, thanks for being cool about
Thanks
it.
for like asking me questions.
If you are still listening right now, it's a mild miracle because that was a very long podcast. Anula is fantastic. Isn't she smart and interesting and just cool? I really like her. I enjoy her Pilates classes, I enjoy her studio, and I enjoy her as a person. Follow her on Instagram. I think you guys will really like her stuff. Okay, that was the episode. One more thank you to Juice Beauty. Like I gushed about at the beginning of this podcast, I can't get enough of their stuff. It's an addiction, and I really enjoy their plant pigmented, that's very hard to say, plant pigmented makeup. And their skincare line is fantastic as well. I've been washing their face with the Green Apple Cleanser, and I should knock on wood or something because who knows, my skin can do whatever it wants to do, but it's been great, you guys. I haven't had any breakouts, and it feels really good even though the seasons are changing, and I think it might be Juice Beauty's fault. I'm also using their primer. I didn't even really know what primer was. It's kind of like moisturizer for me. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be, but I've been using it every day, and I love it. It really makes my skin feel good. So check that out. Go to juicebeauty.com/letitout for 15% off your order. Also, thank you to Bob's Red Mill. Their products are something that I've been using for years, so when they wanted to become a sponsor, I was very okay with that. And by okay, I mean I was very excited. And I think you might be excited too because you can get 25% off your order by using the code LETITOUT. And here's the thing, you're probably using their products anyway. Maybe you use their oatmeal, maybe you use their flaxseed, maybe you use their flours for baking soda. They have everything. They literally have everything. You're probably buying that stuff anyway. So you might as well stock up, and you might as well support the podcast, and you might as well get a discount, 25%, by using the code LETITOUT at checkout. The link's in the show notes. I'm just thinking it makes sense, you guys. You know, the thing is, it's cost effective. You're killing like 3 birds with 1 stone. You're supporting the podcast. And you're probably baking and buying stuff you'd already be buying anyway. And if you are baking, feel free to send me samples. I am a fantastic taste tester, and I would love to eat what you are cooking. Okay? All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. The emoji. Took me so long to think of that word, but the emoji for this episode is the potato. Okay? So tweet at me and comment on my Instagram, and also at Anula's Instagram, the potato, because she is the founder of the potato method. Love you guys. Talk to you next week. Bye.